Most men today feel restless. They're constantly pulled by urges, distractions, desires they don't fully understand. Every screen, every image, every click feeds something inside them, but leaves them emptier than before. And no one talks about why. Carl Jung did, long before modern life exploded with temptation. Jung warned that a man disconnected from his deeper self, a man ruled by unconscious desire, would never be free. Because when your mind is consumed by what it craves, you lose sight of who you are. This isn't about shame. It's about energy. And what happens when that energy is never reclaimed? This video is not for the faint-hearted. It's for the man ready to face the truth that the most powerful version of himself begins with one choice: to desexualize his mind and reclaim his life. There's a quiet war going on inside the modern man. It's not on a battlefield. It's not between nations. It's not even between people. It's within, and the weapon in this battle is not aggression. It's not dominance. It's not conquest. It's the mind, but not just any mind, the desexualized mind. Carl Jung saw this coming, long before modern distractions took over. He understood something few people today are willing to say out loud, that the path to true strength, power, and self-possession begins when a man takes back control of his sexual energy. Because sexual energy, libido, isn't just about sex. It's life force. It's the raw power of creation, of imagination, of drive. And when that energy is scattered, wasted, consumed, or exploited, so is the man. In today's world, the modern male is drowning in stimulation. It's everywhere. On his phone, in his browser, in his subconscious. The bombardment is nonstop. And with every scroll, every click, every indulgence, that energy is bled out drop by drop. Jung didn't live to see smartphones or social media, but he saw the pattern long ago. The man who is constantly pulled by base desire, who is always reacting to urges, chasing pleasures, submitting to cravings, is not free. He is distracted. He is weakened. He is fragmented. Jung called this the failure of individuation, the failure to become whole. Because when a man never learns to direct his inner energy inward, when he never integrates his instincts, when he never confronts the shadow of his own desire, he remains a puppet to it. And this is a trap so many fall into. We think freedom is doing what we want when we want. We think masculinity is dominance or indulgence. We think manhood is about the pursuit of pleasure. But Jung had a different vision. He believed in the alchemical transformation of energy, the idea that raw, primal, even sexual energy could be transformed, sublimated into something greater, not suppressed, not shamed, but transformed. When a man redirects his energy from outward obsession to inward mastery, everything changes. He no longer needs constant validation. He no longer craves empty connection. He no longer feels pulled by every attractive face, every fleeting fantasy. He becomes centered, present, purpose-driven. And that is terrifying to a world built on distraction. Because a desexualized mind, not in the sense of being dead, but in the sense of being disciplined, is rare. A man who doesn't chase every urge is unpredictable. A man who isn't led by lust is powerful. A man who knows how to hold his energy becomes magnetic, not because he's performing, but because he's real. Jung understood that most men never become themselves. They become what they think others want them to be. They act out personas, masks, designed to be accepted. They chase women not because they want love, but because they want to feel enough. They look outside because they are empty inside, and instead of facing the emptiness, they numb it with sex, with porn, with fantasy, with performance. But deep down, they know that the chase isn't making them whole. They know that the desire never ends. It only grows. It feeds on itself. It becomes a trap. And in that trap, they forget who they are. Carl Jung didn't hate desire. He wasn't a moralist. He understood it. He respected it. He saw it as sacred. But he also saw what happened when it remained unconscious. Unconscious desire, unchecked, unexamined, untransformed, rules the man from the shadows. It decides his relationships. It decides his goals. It even decides his identity. But when that energy is brought into awareness, when it is observed, held, directed, it becomes fuel. Fuel for purpose. Fuel for creativity. Fuel for awakening. That is the secret. That is the weapon. The man who has tamed his own mind, who is not ruled by pleasure, who is not driven by hunger, who can look temptation in the eye and smile, not because he's repressing it, but because he's mastered it. That man is dangerous. He can't be sold to. He can't be baited. He can't be controlled. He lives on his own terms. And in that quiet, inner freedom, he discovers something the world never told him, that there is more to him than what he's been conditioned to chase, that the greatest version of himself isn't found in indulgence, but in alignment, not in addiction, but in awareness, not in being wanted, but in being whole. The modern man is being pulled in 1,000 directions, but the ones who rise, truly rise, are those who learn to pull that energy back in, to sit with it, to hold it, to understand it, to shape it. Jung would call this individuation, the integration of the unconscious, the meeting of the shadow, the becoming of the self, and it begins when the man no longer serves his desire, but commands it. Most men were never taught what to do with their desire. They were only taught to follow it, to chase it, to believe that their masculinity is measured by how often they can act on it. But what if that was a lie? What if the most masculine thing a man could do was not to surrender to desire, but to transform it? Carl Jung wasn't trying to shame masculinity. He was trying to refine it, to elevate it, to reconnect it to meaning, because a man without discipline is not free. He's enslaved by his instincts, and desire, when left unexamined, consumes a man from the inside. But here's what most people miss. Sexual energy is not bad. It's powerful. And that's exactly why it must be understood. Harnessed, directed. Jung believed in what the alchemists called sublimation, taking lower instincts and transmuting them into higher expressions, turning the heat of lust into the fire of purpose, the raw drive for pleasure into a passion for building, creating, becoming. This isn't about celibacy. This isn't about repression. It's about reownership. It's about not leaking energy through fantasy and fixation. It's about taking back the creative force that was always yours and choosing where to aim it. Because here's the truth. Men who constantly drain their energy through sex, porn, meaningless conversations, they never build anything lasting. They start things. They talk big. They make plans. But they don't finish because they're empty. They've already spent the very fire they needed to climb. A desexualized mind isn't a dead mind. It's a focused mind. It's a calm mind. It's a mind that knows how to store energy like water behind a dam, and then release it with intention, not scatter it in every direction. And when a man starts doing this, he becomes something the world rarely sees anymore. Solid, steady, unshakable. He doesn't panic when he's alone. He doesn't chase people who don't respect him. He doesn't beg to be loved because he's busy building himself, building discipline, building a reality that can't be taken from him. Jung spoke often about the anima, the inner feminine force that lives within every man. Most men reject it, or they project it. They look for it in women. They seek it externally. But the anima isn't something to chase in others. It's something to integrate within. The man who has integrated his anima is no longer haunted by the need to complete himself through others. He doesn't seek women to feel whole. He is whole, and because of that, he can actually love, not perform, not possess, but love. He sees women not as objects of desire, but as mirrors of his own inner balance. And that makes him powerful, not because he dominates them, but because he doesn't depend on them for his identity. This inner integration is only possible when a man learns to sit with his own energy, to hold it, to know it, to not run from it. Most men are terrified of their own mind. They can't sit still. They can't be without noise, without a screen, without something stimulating them. But this is where the transformation happens. In stillness, in silence, in solitude. Because when the noise fades, you meet what's underneath. Your fears, your desires, your loneliness, your power, and most of all, your responsibility. Jung believed the path to maturity was not in running away from instinct, but in integrating it, not in acting like it doesn't exist, but in looking it in the eye and saying, "You don't control me. I do." The desexualized man doesn't hate sex. He's just not ruled by it. He doesn't fear beauty. He's just not hypnotized by it. He doesn't need constant stimulation because he's already alive inside. That kind of man is hard to find, but when you do, you feel it. There's a presence, a weight, a stillness that speaks louder than words. He's not proving anything. He's just being. And that being is grounded, disciplined, awake, in a world that tells men to chase, to impress, to perform. This kind of quiet self-possession is revolutionary. The man who has reclaimed his mind is no longer prey for the world's distractions. He sees the trap, and he walks the other way. And ironically, that's what makes him magnetic. Not the clothes, not the car, not the charm, but the fact that he doesn't need to be seen. He's not trying to be desired. He's trying to fulfill a purpose. And people can feel that. There's a clarity in his eyes, not from perfection, but from presence. And that presence is a result of something rare. A man who has chosen depth over dopamine, substance over stimulation, self over ego. He still feels desire, but he doesn't serve it. He listens to it, but he doesn't obey it. He lets it rise, but he doesn't let it run the show, because he knows that if he gives that power away, he loses himself. But if he holds it, contains it, channels it, he becomes unstoppable. Not in a loud, aggressive way, but in a silent, focused, determined way that builds empires from the inside out. And that's the power of a desexualized mind. The modern man is overexposed and underdeveloped. He sees everything, but understands nothing. He desires endlessly, but creates very little. He's constantly surrounded by stimulation, but rarely connected to meaning. Carl Jung warned us about this. He called it psychic inflation. When the ego becomes bloated with false identities, unchecked desires, and unearned confidence. It happens when a man consumes more than he integrates, when he thinks knowing is the same as becoming, when he confuses possession with purpose. But the desexualized mind doesn't inflate. It sharpens. It simplifies. It quiets the noise. You see, the man who masters his desire doesn't become less of a man. He becomes more of one, because he stops acting like a child looking for validation. He becomes a father of himself. He becomes his own authority, his own guide. Jung believed that the masculine journey isn't about dominance. It's about depth, about plumbing the unconscious, confronting the shadow, and becoming whole. But this can't happen when a man is constantly running from his emptiness. And most modern men are. They run from boredom with dopamine, from silence with distraction, from pain with pleasure, from uncertainty with control, and from themselves with lust. Desire becomes a mask, and the world applauds a mask. You're rewarded for chasing, for consuming, for never resting. But you're punished for introspection, for stillness, for restraint. So few ever take the journey inward. So few ever stop long enough to hear their own soul whispering. The desexualized man has heard that whisper. He has chosen solitude over shallow connection, clarity over chaos, simplicity over stimulation, not because he's afraid to live, but because he wants to live well, with purpose, with strength, with meaning. And meaning doesn't scream. It whispers. It arrives in silence, in reflection, in discipline. Jung believed that true masculinity is earned, not inherited. It's not something you're born with. It's something you build, and you build it by facing what most people avoid. Your fears, your rage, your desires, your inner chaos. You face it, you own it, and you shape it into something higher. This is why Jung's psychology is so different from pop culture's idea of manhood. It's not about the image. It's about the integration. It's not about how you look. It's about how deeply you've descended into yourself, and whether you came back with something real. The man who does this doesn't need to posture. He doesn't need to impress. He doesn't need to dominate, because he has nothing to prove. He's not performing masculinity. He's embodying it, and you can feel it. He walks into a room and doesn't need to say a word, because his silence carries weight. His restraint demands respect, not by force, but by presence. That presence is the gift of discipline, the gift of having tamed the dragon within, of having held the fire, and chosen not to burn the world with it, but to warm something meaningful instead. A woman may admire a man for his looks, but she trusts him for his presence, for his steadiness, for his self-control. That's what the desexualized mind offers. Not rejection of desire, but leadership over it. And this is where Jung's idea of the transcendent function becomes powerful. It's when opposites within us, instinct and spirit, shadow and self, desire and discipline, are held together long enough that something new is born, a synthesis. A third thing, this is what happens in the desexualized man. He doesn't destroy his desire. He elevates it. He fuses it with purpose. And out of that fusion emerges clarity, strength, authenticity. He becomes a creator instead of a consumer, a builder instead of a seeker, a beacon instead of a mirror. The world doesn't need more men chasing approval. It needs more men becoming whole. And that doesn't come from indulging every urge. It comes from holding your ground when everything in you wants to escape. It comes from choosing the hard path when the easy one is right in front of you. It comes from being willing to sit in your own emptiness until something true emerges. Most people won't do this. They'll chase fantasy after fantasy. They'll scroll endlessly. They'll medicate, numb, distract, repeat. But some men will wake up. They'll notice the exhaustion that comes from overexposure. They'll feel the dull ache of unfulfilled desire. They'll see that the freedom they were promised is a cage with invisible bars. And they'll stop. They'll sit. They'll listen. And they'll begin the work. The work of turning energy inward. The work of building character. The work of self-integration. The work of real masculinity. Carl Jung didn't give us rules. He gave us maps. Maps of the psyche, maps of the unconscious, maps of the journey inward. But you have to walk it. You have to choose to become. And it starts with one radical act in a world addicted to pleasure, choosing not to indulge, choosing stillness, choosing silence, choosing strength. Because in that choice, something awakens, a fire that doesn't destroy, but purifies. And in that fire, a new man is born. Not the man the world expects, not the man who chases approval, but the man who has come home to himself. This is the power of the desexualized mind. It's not empty. It's not cold. It's not lifeless. It is sharp. It is awake. It is alive. And it is yours if you're willing to stop chasing and start choosing. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. And if you found something of value in the silence, consider supporting this journey. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel Cognit Haven so we can keep exploring the mind together